As you can see on the screen, if we have this is our Advent preaching series, So What, right? So what? And it's this idea of what are we sowing? What is being sown within us? How do we, manage the grace that God has given to us as a parish? And we've had the first couple of weeks, and I feel a little bit of peer pressure because Deacon Art spoke about, planting seeds for their gardens in Newfoundland when he was a boy, and Father Michael spoke about being at the, that lentil farm in Alberta with his friend Joshua and stuff. So I feel like, man, I better tell some kind of horticultural tale of something, So for this one, I was wanting to share about something that was a really cool gift someone gave me when I left Nova Scotia for the first time. I left in 2007 to go back to Ontario, and this lady named Debbie Richards gave me this little pot with soil in it with a little orange seed planted in it. And it was starting to sprout just a little bit, so I watered it a lot, and I brought it home with me on the U-Haul, this little tiny plant, And then what happened was, in about 2012, so 5 years later, I was watering it, taking good care of it. People were actually kind of, lovingly mocking me, like, oh, there's your orange tree there, Tim, good luck with that, It's not, all I see is a bunch of green stuff, not much orange going on. I'm like, I know, but I kept watering it, kept getting bigger, and people were even joking with me. One of these days, Tim, we're just going to tie clementines to the end of your branches so you can think maybe something's going on, But sure enough, one day in 2012, in December, I went down and sure enough, wasn't there some blooms on the orange tree? It finally started to bloom, and it gave me such hope, and I was vindicated. People were like, the words I heard from my brothers that week later were like, I never thought that would happen. This was impossible. How did they were just overwhelmed, they was excited. And it goes to show that when we're doing something and sticking with something that's growing, that sometimes we need that little sign of hope that it's worth. Just like I needed that little hope to know, man, this plant's worth watering. I've been carrying it around with me all over the place and watering it for 5 years. Now finally it's giving some blooms, and it gave me that shot in the arm that I needed, that hope to keep it up, because eventually the little fruits would come. And they did. There were these little tiny oranges that were actually, people told me they were actually green, like little Grinchy oranges, and they were pretty sour, but I was just excited because it was the first crop of that orange tree. I was excited, and it just goes to show, I think, in our own lives. I'm sure we have things that, we're busy with and doing, and sometimes people we're praying for, things that we're hoping for, and it can seem like, wow, like, is this going to end, is this going to work? Is this worth it? And we need those little signs of hope to keep us going. And that's what blooms in the natural world can be a sign for us of, like, these signs of hope that the fruits are coming, and so when you go like the apple blossom, special or whatever, like, that there's, apples are coming soon. And so too in our parish, we're talking about these different phases of growth, right? On our Advent preaching series symbol there, we have like the pine cone, and then it goes to the tree growing, and then the fully grown tree with the pine cones ready to make new pine cones, right? And new pine trees. And so likewise for us, we've been through a real foundations phase, needing to, close a couple churches, all come here and go through everything, and now we're in the growing phase. And in this growing phase, we need patience, right? St. James is really clear in that reading, that we need patience. We have to trust that God knows what he's doing, even in the growing pains and the struggles. Hang in there because it's heading in the right direction. Trust in that God will finish the good work he has begun in us. And so too in this growing phase, we're not yet at the fruit-bearing stage yet. We're not at the commissioning phase where we're planting new trees, right? But rather, we're still in this growing, so we need that patience. But God is good. He wants to help us to give us that hope, that shot in the arm, to sort of remind us, like, no, hang in there, keep going, it's working. You'll eventually get to that commissioning phase. But right now, keep doing what you need to do to accommodate the growth that's happening. Keep watering the plant, so to speak. And so for us, I believe that there are some signs of hope even within our own, parish experience of growth that are giving us hope, giving us that encouragement that we're going in the right direction. This is that little sort of that shoot, that's come from the stump of Jesse. We've been taking care of it, and now there's some little blooms going. And I think two blooms in particular. One is that we're seeing actual growth in numbers, right? More people are coming to our weekend masses and to different events that we have, and we're seeing growth in that way. There's those actual signs that people are coming, and it's exciting to think that, in a time when we're in a church that in a lot of ways is in decline, right? Less and less people are coming to Mass and things are going, and what we're seeing rather, because of the difficult things we did in the foundations, now we're seeing growth again. And so we're managing a church not in decline, but on the increase. Isn't that a lot more hopeful? That's a lot more exciting because we're going, upwards, right? We're going in a special direction towards commissioning. So we're seeing growth. And so one thing I would encourage is to take time to stop and delight in these blooms, right? In these blossoms. Just like you would, during a blossom festival of, apple blossom. You want to go down and check it out and smell them and look at them and see how pretty it is and get excited about the apples. So too, we want to actually take stock on this Rejoice Sunday, Gaudete Sunday, and to say, yeah, I'm going to meet some of these new people, right? There's some new people that maybe you haven't had a chance to meet yet that have been coming, maybe just showed up in the past few months or the past year or so. And maybe after Mass today, if you, recognize recognize probably the wrong word, but if you notice some faces that you haven't actually met before, maybe take some time to get to know them, right? And to introduce yourself. This is our way of these are some of the blossoms, the blooms of what God is providing for us as we grow as a parish. Another bloom is the one where we're starting to see people encountering the Lord personally. We're seeing people coming to the Lord in a beautiful way, and their lives are being changed. This is beautiful to see that. It's great that, I can talk about when the Lord touched my heart and changed me in 1996, but that was in Ontario a long time ago, right? But people's lives are being changed right here, right now, in 2025 at Holy Trinity Parish. And these are blooms that God's saying, you're on the right track, right? Because we'll have the next slide up there. It's our discipleship pathway, right? We have this desire in our parish as we grow that we're not just growing in, numbers and whatnot, but that we're growing to become missionary disciples, right? That we are growing, moving from encounter, right, to the next stage of growing, with other groups, people around us, supporting each other in smaller groups. And then we go to worshiping, where we're getting more into the fullness of the sacramental life and really coming into growing in our prayer life, in connection with God. And then we're serving others, and then we're moving finally to that fifth step of evangelizing and bringing new people to encounter and start it all over again. And I know it doesn't always happen in that order, but this is one of our goals in our parish, is to bring all of us somehow through these 5 pathway areas, towards becoming missionary disciples. And it's exciting is this worth it? Is it worth watering this plant? It's like, yeah, people are encountering the Lord. They're experiencing Him through our Alpha Course program or different, worship or healing nights. Some people were really touched during Father Graham's mission in Lent, and we've had the Companions of the Cross seminarians came out and did the Exalt tour in the summer, and we've had some other fun events, and the youth are being touched through the Steubenville program, and we're seeing here at our parishes, especially through Alpha, a lot of people's hearts being changed. And there's people we can talk to. So hopefully you'll get a chance to read on our website or to talk to people that have given testimony here at the parish, just to let that also be a way for us to rejoice on this Gaudete Sunday, to say, yeah, the Lord's moving among us. These are these blooms that are happening right now. And maybe if the Lord has touched your life, but you really haven't let anybody know about it, maybe this is a way that you can help us to be encouraged as a parish. If you want to share your story with us, either through an email or some other, just talking to Father Michael or myself, it'd be great for us to learn how the Lord's touching us so that we can take time to smell those blossoms, right? And to get excited about the forthcoming fruit eventually in our parish. So as you can see, we have in our midst, during this growing process, some blooms that we can stop and actually take stock of and to get excited about, and so for us, this is not the end this is not our destination, but it sure gives us that hope to keep pressing in, to keep patient, because we are headed in the right direction. And one day we will get to that commissioning phase, which Father Michael will talk about next weekend. Now, for us in this season of Advent, maybe there's things in our own personal lives that we're getting discouraged about, not necessarily at the parish level or wherever, but in our own personal lives, and things that we want to ask God to help us This is the kind of God that we have. He's a God who does not mind giving us signs. He's the kind of God who, he knows our human nature. He knows that we need glimpses of hope to keep us going, right? Think of the transfiguration, for Peter and James, Peter and John and James, to know that Jesus is going to endure the cross, but it's not in vain. He is glorious, right? So likewise, on this Gaudete Sunday, let's maybe think of something that we can say, Lord, what's something that I need some hope? Are these prayers I'm saying going up into outer space, into emptiness, or are they actually working? Like, what's happening here, Lord? Give me some hope. Give me a sign. And God will find a way to speak to our hearts, and to show us something that's meaningful to us, that'll give us that message that, yeah, you're on the right track. Keep it up. This is the kind of God we serve. And so as we're looking in our own hearts for signs that we're on the right track, and as we're delighting in the signs that are present in our parish, in our own, great thing that God's doing among us, let's make sure that we don't miss out this weekend on a chance to rejoice, to take heart, to know that God is moving among us, that we're a church on the increase, not on the decline, and that God has great plans for those and he will finish the great work that he has begun in us. Amen.